Hello everyone, Bradley here, and if you are anything like me, you might be sitting right now in a Baby Yoda t-shirt in a room that is air-conditioned even though you live in Canada and it's November and it's already cold outside, and you might be staring at your monitor opening Football Manager 2021 for the first time. We're in the beta phase. Maybe you opened it up a week ago. Maybe you're opening it up for the first time now. Maybe you're a new Football Manager player. Maybe you've played for a while and are just looking for some tips, some tricks, some hints. We can't cover it all in one video. There's a lot of mechanics in Football Manager, but me and my cold Baby Yoda t-shirt wearing self can help you walk through training in Football Manager 21. Let's roll. We are now inside Football Manager 2021. Yes, the beta is out. It is an exciting time for all of us Football Manager fans out there. We are in our Shamrock Rovers save. We are streaming this save live on twitch.tv/VanBradley. Link in the description below if you want to check out this save live. Currently top of the league, 4 points above Dundalk, having a good time. And let's set up our training. So the first thing we need to talk about is the training screen right here. If you go down to the left-hand bar, there's a whole training screen right here. There's little pylons, very, very cool. You click that button, and all of a sudden you have a whole kind of training emporium just at your disposal. There's a lot of buttons up top. There's a lot of buttons in here. We're going to talk about what those buttons do. But the first thing I recommend doing for you when you're setting up your training for your brand new save is to head over to Staff, Responsibilities, Training, and then have your assistant manager take control of the training. If you set up the training for your save by yourself every time, it will take you forever. If that's your thing, you should do that. We're still going to cover how you take a look at your calendar and how you actually implement the training you'd like to see. My approach to it, I know a lot of other people do it this way as well, is to have your assistant manager actually take over your training. So Leeds General Training, Shamrock Rovers, Glenn Cronin. He's not the brightest assistant manager, but he's doing a good job. And he is going to make our training schedule for us. It is also very important that you have this checked off here. Receive training emails for Shamrock Rovers. That way, every time there is a schedule made for your training, it will appear in your inbox and you can edit it from your inbox, or it'll take you over to the training, or you'll just get a little reminder in your head like, hey, Glenn Cronin, my assistant manager, has made me a training schedule. I should look at it to make sure it's how I like it. I have found one of those emails that I was just talking about. Training schedule for the coming weeks. Shamrock Rovers. This is from Glenn Cronin, the man we assigned to make our training schedule. And this is it right here. So we can go in and we can move around and we can edit this training schedule from here. If I want to add something, I can add something. You can do all of it from right here. You could also head over into your training tab and do it from here if you would rather do that. Before we actually adjust any training and talk about kind of how you might want to set up your training and how I approach training in Football Manager 2021, the first thing we're going to do is take a look at training units. They're not super important. They don't become relevant all the time, but they are good to know about because as you're learning the different types of training modules you can put in, training units will have a big part of that. How you find those, you just head up top here, click Units. All right, and they are just split into a goalkeeping unit with your goalkeepers, a defensive unit with your defending players, and an attacking unit with all of your attacking players. When you are adjusting your training, there's a few different ways to do it. So the first thing you might want to do is adjust this week's training, which will appear right here. Anything in gray has already passed. Anything over here, any of these rest periods, you can adjust here. You can't adjust on game days. Game days are just automatically filled out bright red at the bottom because they're full. And this bar at the bottom tells you how intense your training day is. If you want to adjust your 1 week schedule, you can do it right here. If you want to adjust a little farther ahead, you're thinking ahead, you can adjust your training here in the training calendar, which gives you all the training schedules that have already been made by your assistant manager. To adjust a schedule, you have two options. If you're learning the game, we'll talk about option one first, just so you can kind of familiarize yourself. The first is to left-click these modules. If you left-click these modules here, there's a beta, there's bugs in the background. This is so strange. If you left click these modules here, you'll be taken to a screen. It will highlight which module you have selected, and you can go down here and you can actually pick your module that you would like your team to train. So let's say we go defending here, and then we go defending wide, right? That's the training. It implants it in here. It adjusts your intensity appropriately. Some training is more intense than others, and this is where the units come in. It'll tell you what your players will be doing based on their unit here. So if we go defending wide, that's what we want to train in this middle module on Thursday, May 13th. The defensive unit, their primary focus, they are the primary focus, sorry. A session dedicated to defending from wide areas, split into positional units, right? They will be impacting tactical familiarity, pressing intensity marking, heading, marking, those types of things. So it tells you what it will be training over here. Down here, injury risk will be slightly increased because we're training. Condition slightly reduced because we're training, right? The attacking unit will attack the defensive unit. So it tells you what they're doing. Goalkeepers will work to prevent goals during this session. So you get 60% focus on the defense, 20% on attacking, 20% for goalkeepers. Once you've selected what you would like to put in this module here, you click the confirm button, and then you want to do yes, but only this once, or else you will take over control of all the general training, which we already learned earlier you don't want to do. You want to have your assistant manager do it. So yes, but only this once. And now my defending wide is in the module that I had put it in. The next thing you can do to adjust this schedule, you can do this either on the training calendar or just back at the overview. Let's say we were like, hey, we put defending wide in. Let's not do that anymore. Let's go back to a rest module. You can actually right click, and right clicking, if you already know where everything is and what everything does, or kind of the main things that you want to switch, you just go to right click, physical, rest, and then you do the same confirmation, and it's much quicker than left clicking and going through this whole big screen here. Right clicking is just a quick way to adjust things on the fly, whether you do it here or you go into your training calendar and do it as well. It's probably time now to talk about some of the training I recommend for you guys to be doing in your saves to kind of give you a little bit of an advantage for it to kind of make sense for you guys. Now, this is just my personal experience playing Football Manager. What I want is I want you guys to absorb the world of FM content. There's so many great content creators, tutorial creators, streamers out there, and you find your own pace. All right, you find your own pace, but if you're new to Football Manager, maybe it's nice to have a little bit of a guide. One of the things I recommend doing, and the AI are really bad at this, your assistant manager will never do it, is to put match reviews in at the end of all your matches. Now, after most matches, there will be a recovery period, which is awesome. Your players need to recover after a big match, but I like putting match reviews in here. So if you right click and you go to match preparation and you go match review, you can only do the match review the day after the match. So it has to be done right away. And what the match review does for you, let's go and take a look at it here. All right, we're here. We figured out, we found the match review as being a bit buggy and glitchy because it is a beta, of course. A session dedicated to analytically reviewing the previous match. It helps improve your tactical familiarity. It helps improve your team cohesion, which are both things you want to be improving all the time, but it doesn't cost anything here, right? There's no reduction in condition or anything like that. So it's a really nice way to add a little bit of team cohesion, to add a little bit of tactical familiarity. I put match reviews at the end of almost every match. They can be really, really helpful. The AI puts match previews before matches as well. That's something I also recommend. If you see a match without a match preview before it, I would try and slide one of those in. The next thing you should be looking at in your training schedules is to make sure, especially during congested schedules, that you don't have any big training days right before a game. The last thing you want to do right before a match is bring your whole team's condition down. Not only will they be tired going into the match and they won't perform as well, they also have a higher chance of getting injured in the match, which is not great at all, especially here when the fixtures are so congested. You have Finn Harps right here. You have 2 days off before you go into Bohemian. You have a recovery day here. How I would approach this is you might want to take an overall session or an attacking session, something that doesn't do too much to your bar at the bottom here, but something to get some players on the pitch. You have to remember that your whole team isn't what you put on the pitch, right? You have other people who aren't playing that also still need to train. We'll talk about how to exclude certain people from training in a minute here while others train, but the rest of your team needs to train too. If you just have a bunch of blank days with no training, the people who aren't playing will also not be training, which is not ideal either. So maybe an overall here makes a lot of sense. We want to get a match review in. Let's get a match preview in. I think that makes a lot of sense too, reducing that. And then here, I think we just do a rest block. Right, there's no reason to have any training here, I don't think. I think everyone will be fine. And that's about a reasonable amount of conditioning to do right before a match. So that's how I would approach having your training look right before a match. You don't want your first team squad going in tired with a higher chance of being injured. If you would like to exclude somebody from training while the rest of your team continues to train as normal, you can do that from the squad screen. You can do this in two ways. First, if it's just an individual. Let's say you have the Cavanator over here, and the Cavanator is just a nickname. His name is something Kavanaugh. We had a bunch of Kavanaughs. Ireland is weird. We had a bunch of Kavanaughs, and we need to come up with nicknames. So we have the Cavanator here, and I want to exclude. He's tired. He's grumpy. You know, this is a better example. How about Ronan Finn? Ronan Finn, he's on a yellow. Look at his heart. His heart is getting low. He's a bit tired. Maybe we want Ronan Finn to be excluded from training. So we can left click and select Ronan Finn in our squad screen. You can right click on the selected player. You can go down to training. You can go down to rest, and you can rest him for 1 day or 2 days or 2 weeks or 6 days or however long you want him to rest and not come to training. All right, so that is how you do it for an individual player. Let's rest him for 1 day, and then a little thing should come up here saying he is being rested. He's being rested for 2 days because it's a beta, but I selected 1 day. Maybe he's already resting today. I don't know. Anyways, he is now resting. If you would like to hold your whole team back from training, maybe you've just had back-to-back games, you're playing on Wednesday and then again on Saturday in a cup match or something strange, and you have a really congested schedule, you can just head to your squad screen again. You can select your top player, which in this case is your keeper if you have it sorted like I do. And then you head and you click the shift key and you shift all the way down to your striker, which will be your starting 11. You can right-click there. And then you can rest everyone at the same time if you want them to all rest for the same amount of time. If you want to add people, let's say you have your team here, they're selected, and you want to add the next couple of people, you can check, let's say Pavel needs to be rested, Gaffer and Green need to be rested. You can just hold the control key and select additional players on top of the ones you've already selected with the shift key. Over back in the training screen, if you click this rest button here, you can set a permanent intensity schedule for your group. So by default, everything is set at normal intensity for kind of orange heart, green heart, and super mega green heart. You will be training at normal. If you are really tired, you won't do any work at all. If you're kind of tired, you do half intensity, and this is how it is normally. If you would like everyone who's always healthy to be on double intensity training, you can do that here. Right? So I've seen some people set it up where they have all the green hearts on double intensity. Some people leave it as is. Most of the time I run with normal. I leave this all the same and I go double intensity for my green hearts. Double intensity training will help make your players get the most out of their training, whether it's individual training, whether it's stat boosts from training. And so if it's possible and you can get people through double intensity, I always find that to be kind of helpful. In more congested schedules, I'll bring this back down to normal. And then it only applies to the condition of the player. So anyone who's not fully good to go will not be training at double intensity. During the preseason, the game automatically kind of gives everyone double intensity a lot of the time, I think, as well. I've noticed that a little bit. I don't know if that's a bug. I don't know if that's a feature. But as you can see here, if I go double intensity here, based on the heart status of everyone, you can see everyone with green heart is training at double. You can see everyone else is training at normal for now. Back on the squad screen, you can also do this individually. You can click Liam Scales here, right click, training, and then training intensity, and you can have him do well, I lost it there. You can have him do double intensity, normal, half intensity, again, if you want to single it out on a per player basis. If you go to your player screen, you can also have your players train individual things separate from everyone else on a per player basis. These can be positions, they can be separate skills that boost certain attributes. So if you go to development up in the top corner here, and then you go to training, you will see the training page for this player. If you want to train your player in a different position, you can select that position. It'll tell you kind of where they're already competent, where they can train, some star ratings here to give you an idea of what you might want to train. If you have this center back here, but you know you're going to need a right back in 6 months, a year, you might want to start training him as a right back. So you can be a little bit flexible. Now, each player has a hidden adaptability rating in the game that determines what positions they can train in. So you can't just trade anyone to play anywhere, right? You can't just be like, oh, I have a center back that I like. He's going to be my new striker. You can't just do that, right? Also, some players take to training multiple positions better than others. A lot of that is based on your hidden attributes in the game that you can't see unless you're using the in-game editor. So be a bit careful with this one, but it is helpful. If you have someone where they're already having some green circles here, you can probably train them in these positions. So let's say I want to train him as a right back. I can go, where are we here? Let's go defender right. He's already competent. Let's go for a no-nonsense fullback defend. Yes, this player for the next month. You can take control of this and have it be more permanent, and then he'll start training there. You can also additionally focus on separate things. So let's say we have our new right back here. He's training to be a right back, and we come here, and let's say his strength is 13. What do we want? His pace is pretty low. His pace is at a 10. All right, let's say we want to get his pace up a little bit. You can go through your quickness. We'll train pace and acceleration. So we might want to train him in quickness. Now, again, some players will take to training better than others. Right? Some players will like it if you have them train individual things. Some players will not like it. Some players will like it depending on which individual things you train. Sometimes you can offend your players by having them work on, let's say they're a defender and their defensive positioning is kind of better than most of their other stats. If you have them continue to work on defensive positioning training, they might not like it so much. Typically, I find, I don't know if this is an actual game mechanic or not, but I find that younger players, more impressionable players, people that are still developing, are much more likely to take to individual training and role training better than older players. I recommend at the start of your season, right, you're heading into the first training camp, going through all your players and seeing if there are any players that you want to train in a new position or train for an additional focus, and just set that up at the start of the season, and then you don't have to worry about it. If you sign new players in the middle of the season in FM21, this was not in FM20, but you will automatically be given the option in your inbox when the player shows up. It'll be here somewhere to set up that training, so you'll get a little reminder and you can set it up from the inbox for the individual training. If you want to set up multiple individual trainings in one go, instead of going to a player page, you can just go to training, hit individual at the top, and you have your whole list of players here. You can click on them and set all of their individual training for one easy to use dashboard instead of being all over their individual player page. On the bottom of this screen here, you will get a training report from your assistant manager, whoever you have selected to give that report. Your staff will give you different reports based on how smart they are. So the bigger budget you have, the better staff you have, the better staff reports you'll get at the bottom here, the more reliable. So if I change this, right, if I change who's giving me the report, it'll tell me something different. In your inbox every once in a while, you will receive a training week in review from Glenn Cronin in our case here, and it'll kind of give you the lowdown on your training. The training load was low. There were no injuries in training. It tells you kind of the split of what training you've been doing. So if you look at this split and you don't like it, you can head into your training tab and change it, just like we talked about earlier. It'll tell you which people are doing well. So Jackie B, Liam, and Groovy are doing great in training. They have training ratings here that you can check out. The average is 7.65 with nobody going particularly badly. If someone's doing badly in training, you can have the option to criticize their training, and you just want to be careful here because people that are injured, as they're coming off their injury, will have bad training ratings as they're working back into training. So just be careful that the person you're about to criticize is not coming back off an injury. That might make them a little bit angry, right? But you can come here and you can praise people's training. I'm not going to do it. You can pat them on the shoulder, think you've trained well. You don't want to do this too often. I think once every couple of weeks is probably fine. If you do it too often, they think you're being insincere, and so they will tell you that. I'm not going to do it because this is actually an email from like a week ago, so I think they probably won't respond well to it. But yeah, it tells you everything here. If you want to praise or criticize people that aren't on this screen, in your training individual tab, it'll let you click on your player here and you can praise or criticize at the top. The last thing I want to mention before we kind of finish up this basic training tutorial for Football Manager 2021, the beta version, although I don't think it's going to change much for the regular version. If you head to Team Cohesion here on the dynamic screen, right now ours is excellent, but it did not start out that way. A lot of this has to do with winning, right? But doing your match reviews is really important too. Get your match reviews in there for a little bit of Team Cohesion, right? But if you're starting out a brand new save, this Team Cohesion might be awful, it might be abysmal, it might be bad, whatever it says here. It might be red. If it's green, you're doing good. If it's red, you're doing bad, right? You can head into your training here and you can do what's called team bonding, right? So on stream, we have really funny names for team bonding. For Ireland, we call it going to the pub. We're all going to the pub. When we did an Iceland save in FM20, we call it going to the hot springs, right? But if you can do it once a week. So find kind of an empty spot once a week at the beginning. I'd say the first half of your season. The first half of every season should probably have at least one team bonding every week in it. You just right click, you go to extracurricular, and you go to team bonding, and that will help bond your team together, kind of gorilla glue it together a little bit. It takes a while to build up that team cohesion. Match reviews, team bonding are great. Those are ways you can do it in here. Winning also helps a lot. The more you're winning, the more cohesive your team is going to be, obviously. But you can do this once a week, and you can just throw some team bonding in here. It doesn't really affect your training workload too much, and it's a really good way to get some initial kind of team cohesion that people might not know about. Anyways, I hope that you are leaving this video with a little more training knowledge in Football Manager 2021. If you enjoyed the video, come check us out on Twitch. We stream Football Manager in the mornings, Civilization 6 in the evenings. We got like a 2-game system going on. It's fantastic. You can be a part of the Shamrock Rovers live. Twitch.tv/VanBradley is the link. It is in the chat below. You can hit the like and subscribe button to join the crew over on YouTube. I'd really appreciate it. Also, you know what those buttons do. Let me know what you think I should do a tutorial on next down in the comments below. I'd love to kind of see your feedback. Let me know what you think. I can do another tutorial. It can be based on something you want to know, and that's all very helpful. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and we will see you in the next one.